Question 1. What is the primary role of an Azure subscription? Option A. To define the physical location of Azure data centers. Option B. To act as a logical container for Azure resources, serving as both a billing and a management boundary. Option C. To provide a global network service for traffic distribution across multiple regions. Option D. To offer a platform for deploying serverless functions without managing underlying infrastructure. The correct answer is to act as a logical container for Azure resources, serving as both a billing and a management boundary. Here's the explanation. An Azure subscription is the fundamental administrative unit that aggregates all resource usage for billing purposes and defines a scope for access control and policy enforcement. Question 2. Which statement accurately describes the relationship between Azure Active Directory, Azure AD tenants, and Azure subscriptions? Option A. Each Azure subscription must be associated with its own unique Azure AD tenant. Option B. An Azure AD tenant can be associated with multiple Azure subscriptions, providing centralized identity management. Option C. Azure AD tenants are solely used for managing Azure resources, not user identities. Option D. Azure subscriptions directly manage user authentication without relying on Azure AD. The correct answer is quote, an Azure AD tenant can be associated with multiple Azure subscriptions, providing centralized identity management. Here's the explanation. A single Azure AD tenant can host multiple Azure subscriptions. This allows organizations to use a single identity provider for all their Azure cloud resources, simplifying identity and access management. Question 3. A large organization wants to apply a consistent set of governance policies and access controls across several Azure subscriptions used by different departments. What is the most effective Azure feature for this purpose? Option A. Azure Resource Groups. Option B. Azure Management Groups. Option C. Azure Availability Zones. Option D. Azure Billing Accounts. The correct answer is Azure Management Groups. Here's the explanation. Management groups are containers that sit hierarchically above subscriptions, allowing you to apply policies and RBAC roles to multiple subscriptions simultaneously, ensuring consistent governance across an enterprise estate. Question 4. What is the primary purpose of Azure Management Groups, and how do they facilitate governance across an organization's Azure estate? Option A. To aggregate billing information across multiple subscriptions and deploy resources directly. Option B. To create a hierarchical structure above subscriptions, allowing consistent application of Azure policies and RBAC assignments that automatically cascade down. Option C. To provide a dedicated environment for running virtual machines and containerized applications. Option D. To define network boundaries and enforce traffic filtering between different Azure regions. The correct answer is to create a hierarchical structure above subscriptions, allowing consistent application of Azure policies and RBAC assignments that automatically cascade down. Here's the explanation. Azure Management Groups provide an organizational layer above subscriptions to manage access, policies, and compliance at scale. Policies and RBAC assignments applied at a higher level in the hierarchy are automatically inherited by all child management groups and subscriptions, ensuring consistent governance. They do not aggregate billing or deploy resources directly. Question 5. An architect is designing a complex Azure Management Group hierarchy for a large enterprise, including the automatically created tenant root group. What is the maximum number of levels deep that this hierarchy can be? Option A. 5 levels. Option B. 6 levels. Option C. 7 levels. Option D. Unlimited. The correct answer is 7 levels. Here's the explanation. The management group hierarchy can be up to 6 levels deep, time excluding times the tenant root group. Since the tenant root group is always the top level group, including it makes the maximum possible depth 7 levels. Question 6. An Azure policy with a deny effect is assigned at a high-level management group, preventing the creation of public IP addresses. A child subscription under this management group then attempts to deploy a resource group and a virtual machine with a public IP address, and an allow policy for public IPs is assigned at that child subscription level. What will be the outcome and why? Option A. The deployment will succeed because the allow policy at the subscription level overrides the higher level deny policy. Option B. The deployment will fail because the deny effect from the higher level management group takes precedence over any allow policy at a lower level. Option C. The deployment will succeed, but the public IP address will be automatically removed by the deny policy. Option D. The deployment will fail only if the resource group itself is tagged as non-compliant by the deny policy. The correct answer is the deployment will fail because the deny effect from the higher level management group takes precedence over any allow policy at a lower level. Here's the explanation. In Azure policy deny, effects always take precedence. If a policy at a higher scope denies an action, a policy at a lower scope attempting to allow it will not succeed. The deployment of the public IP address will be blocked. Question 7. Which of the following best describes Azure Virtual Machines, VMs? Option A. A platform as a service, PaaS, offering that automatically scales web applications without server management. Option B. Microsoft Azure's Infrastructure as a Service, IaaS, offering, providing scalable, on-demand computing resources with full operating system control. Option C. A serverless compute service where users only pay for the execution time of their code. Option D. A global content delivery network, CDN, for caching static web content closer to users. The correct answer is Microsoft Azure's Infrastructure as a Service, IaaS, offering, providing scalable, on-demand computing resources with full operating system control. Here's the explanation. Azure VMs are an IaaS offering, meaning they provide virtualized compute resources, CPU, memory, storage, networking, over which users have full administrative control of the operating system and installed software. PaaS, serverless, and CDN are different service models. Question 8. A developer wants to deploy a critical application on Azure VMs and needs to protect against failures of an entire data center within an Azure region. Which availability option should they choose? Option A. Azure Availability Set. Option B. Azure Virtual Network. Option C. Azure Availability Zone. Option D. Azure Resource Group. The correct answer is Azure Availability Zone. Here's the explanation. Availability zones provide physical and logical separation of VMs across multiple distinct data centers within an Azure region. This protects against data center level failures. Availability sets protect against single points of failure within a single data center. Question 9. Which statement about the temporary disk on an Azure virtual machine is correct? Option A. It is the primary disk for the operating system and application data. Option B. Data stored on the temporary disk is persistent across VM deallocations and reboots. Option C. It is a local disk for temporary storage, and any data stored there is lost during VM deallocation or certain maintenance events. Option D. It is only available on Linux VMs, not Windows VMs. The correct answer is, it is a local disk for temporary storage, and any data stored there is lost during VM deallocation or certain maintenance events. Here's the explanation. The temporary disk, D. Drive on Windows, dev SDB1 on Linux, is local to the host and is not persistent. Critical data should never be stored on it as it can be lost during VM deallocation, resizing, or host maintenance. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.